Imagine fleeing for your life, haunted by guilt and regret, only to find yourself face to face with a divine vision that changes everything. This is Jacob's story, a tale of betrayal, redemption, and an encounter that redefines his destiny. Stick around because this journey might just mirror a part of your own. Jacob sits at his family table, guilt gnawing at him after deceiving Esau for both his birthright and blessing. Esau's rage boils over, and Jacob, fearing for his life, flees under the cover of darkness, leaving his home behind. As he journeys into the wilderness, Jacob's mind churns with regret and fear. His heart is heavy with the weight of his actions, and he begins questioning his destiny. Jacob pauses in a barren landscape, utterly alone. He arranges a stone as a makeshift pillow and lies down under the vast, starlit sky. Exhausted from his journey, his thoughts oscillate between fear for his life and hope for a new beginning. The cold ground and haunting silence emphasize his vulnerability and isolation. As Jacob drifts into sleep, a brilliant light pierces the darkness. A ladder appears, stretching from earth to heaven, glowing with divine radiance. Angels ascend and descend the ladder in harmonious motion, their robes shimmering with celestial light. Above it all stands the figure of the Lord, radiating glory and speaking promises of protection and blessing. The Lord speaks from above the ladder, his voice reverberating with authority and compassion. He reaffirms his covenant with Jacob, promising land, descendants as numerous as dust, and unyielding divine presence. Jacob, though initially awestruck, begins to feel a profound sense of hope and reassurance. Jacob wakes abruptly, his heart racing as he processes the vision. He proclaims, "Surely the Lord is in this place," and sets up the stone he slept on as a pillar. Pouring oil over it, he consecrates the spot as Bethel, the house of God. The act marks a turning point in Jacob's spiritual journey. Jacob, deeply moved by his divine encounter, takes time to reflect on the significance of the place he has named Bethel. He marvels at the assurance of God's presence and recalls the words spoken in his dream, promises of land, descendants, and unyielding protection. As he anoints the stone with oil, the act becomes a symbol of his newfound faith. Bethel becomes sacred ground, a physical reminder of his spiritual awakening. Jacob resolves to return to this spot once his journey is complete, dedicating it to God's glory. The desert, though barren, now feels alive with purpose. The vast silence around him is no longer intimidating, but filled with the assurance of divine accompaniment. Jacob prays for strength to navigate the uncertain path ahead, committing himself to the promises he has received. This is the turning point for Jacob, who has spent much of his life relying on cunning rather than faith. As he leaves Bethel, he carries the vision of the ladder and the words of the Lord as guiding lights for his future. Jacob resumes his journey toward Haran, the homeland of his mother, Rebekah. The road is long and perilous, with harsh terrain and few signs of life. As he walks, Jacob reflects on his past misdeeds and wonders how he can reconcile his actions with the promises of God. He encounters streams and fields along the way, their beauty providing moments of solace. Jacob begins to realize that God's hand is guiding him even in the smallest details. A chance meeting with shepherds near a well offers Jacob an opportunity to ask about his destination. They speak of Laban, his mother's brother, and assure Jacob he is drawing near. The thought of family brings mixed emotions, relief at finding refuge and apprehension about starting anew. Jacob's heart wrestles with uncertainty, but the memory of the vision at Bethel steadies him. Each step becomes an act of faith as he presses forward, eager to see how God's promises will unfold. As Jacob approaches a well in the outskirts of Haran, he sees a group of shepherds gathered with their flocks. Among them is Rachel, Laban's younger daughter, tending to her sheep. Her beauty and grace immediately captivate Jacob, and he feels an inexplicable connection. Summoning his courage, Jacob steps forward and rolls away the heavy stone covering the well, an act of strength that impresses the onlookers. He introduces himself to Rachel, explaining that he is her cousin and seeking refuge with her father. Tears of relief and joy well up in Jacob's eyes as Rachel welcomes him warmly and runs to inform her family of his arrival. This encounter marks the beginning of a love story that will shape Jacob's destiny, intertwining his path with Rachel's in profound and unexpected ways. Jacob is warmly received by Laban, who welcomes him into his home. Laban listens intently as Jacob recounts his journey and the vision of the latter. The household is abuzz with curiosity and excitement about the newcomer, and Jacob quickly becomes a trusted member of the family. However, Laban, known for his cunning nature, begins to see an opportunity in Jacob's arrival. Meanwhile, Jacob grows closer to Rachel, and their bond deepens with each passing day. The warmth of familial connections offers Jacob a respite from his earlier struggles, but beneath the surface, tensions and schemes are brewing. Laban proposes that Jacob work for him in exchange for the right to marry Rachel, setting the stage for a complex and challenging chapter in Jacob's life. Jacob agrees to work for Laban for 7 years to earn Rachel's hand in marriage. Though the work is grueling, Jacob's love for Rachel makes the years feel like days. He tends to Laban's flocks with diligence, his heart set on the day he can call Rachel his wife. However, Jacob begins to notice Laban's manipulative tendencies, and he grows wary of his uncle's schemes. The tension between his love for Rachel and the challenges of working under Laban creates a complex emotional landscape for Jacob. The long-awaited wedding day finally arrives, and Jacob is filled with joy as he prepares to marry Rachel. The celebrations are grand, with feasting, music, and dancing under the stars. But as the evening progresses, Laban executes a shocking deception. Veiled and shrouded by tradition, Leah, Rachel's older sister, is substituted for Rachel. In the dim light of the tent, Jacob, unaware of the switch, consummates the marriage with Leah. The next morning, Jacob is furious upon discovering Laban's trickery. Confronting his uncle, he demands an explanation, only to be told that Leah, as the elder daughter, must marry first according to custom. Laban offers a compromise. Jacob can marry Rachel as well, but only after working an additional 7 years. Feeling betrayed yet driven by his love for Rachel, Jacob reluctantly agrees. This moment marks a significant turning point in Jacob's story, introducing themes of deceit, resilience, and God's sovereignty over human affairs. Jacob's marriages to both sisters create a complicated family dynamic. Leah, though deeply loyal and kind, struggles with feelings of rejection as Jacob's heart clearly belongs to Rachel. Meanwhile, Rachel wrestles with jealousy as Leah bears children while Rachel remains barren. The tension between the sisters grows, testing Jacob's patience and faith. Jacob, torn between his love for Rachel and his responsibilities to Leah, prays for wisdom. Despite the strife, Jacob begins to see God's hand in the unfolding events, understanding that even amidst human flaws, divine purposes are being fulfilled. Over the years, Jacob's household grows as Leah bears multiple sons, while Rachel, through her servant Bilhah, also provides Jacob with children. The complexity of the family relationships deepens, with each wife vying for Jacob's attention and favor. Meanwhile, Jacob becomes a skilled herdsman, managing Laban's flocks with great success. His prosperity grows, yet his longing for independence and a return to his homeland begins to stir. Jacob senses that his time under Laban's roof is drawing to a close, but he waits patiently for God's direction. One night, as Jacob gazes at the stars, he hears God's voice calling him to return to the land of his fathers. The command fills him with a mix of excitement and apprehension. He recalls Esau's threats and wonders whether his brother still harbors anger. Nevertheless, Jacob's faith in God's promises emboldens him. He begins making preparations for the journey, secretly gathering his family and possessions. He knows the road ahead will not be easy, but the vision of Bethel and the assurance of God's presence give him courage. Jacob gathers his family, servants, and livestock for the journey back to Canaan. The departure is shrouded in secrecy to avoid confrontation with Laban. Under cover of night, Jacob leads his household away, leaving behind years of service and the challenges of Laban's manipulation. The caravan winds through the wilderness, with Jacob constantly scanning the horizon for danger. The tension is palpable as they move farther from Haran and closer to the unknown challenges awaiting them in Canaan. Pause for a moment. What would you do if you had a vision that promised everything you ever dreamed of, but you knew you didn't deserve it? Drop your answer in the comments. I'd love to hear how you'd handle that crossroads moment. Jacob's escape does not go unnoticed for long. Days into the journey, Laban discovers their departure and, driven by a mix of anger and self-interest, pursues Jacob with his men. After a tense pursuit, Laban catches up to Jacob's caravan in the hills of Gilead. The confrontation begins with accusations as Laban questions Jacob's decision to leave without notice and accuses him of theft. Jacob, emboldened by his vision of God and the knowledge of his labor for Laban, stands his ground. "I worked for you with all my strength," he declares, recounting the years of toil under Laban's manipulation. Despite the rising tension, the two men ultimately come to an uneasy truce. They erect a stone monument as a witness to their agreement, vowing not to harm one another as they part ways. Jacob watches as Laban and his men ride away, feeling a sense of liberation mixed with foreboding as he turns his attention to the challenges that lie ahead. As Jacob's caravan moves closer to Canaan, news reaches him that Esau is coming to meet him with 400 men. Fear grips Jacob as memories of his betrayal resurface. He remembers Esau's vow to kill him and wonders if his brother's wrath has cooled or intensified. Jacob divides his caravan into two groups, hoping to preserve at least part of his family should Esau attack. He sends gifts of livestock ahead as a peace offering, each group bearing a message of humility. "Your servant Jacob sends this to his lord Esau." That night, alone by the Jabbok River, Jacob wrestles not only with his fear, but also with the weight of his past. He prays fervently, reminding God of the promises made at Bethel and pleading for protection. That same night, Jacob experiences one of the most profound moments of his life. Alone by the river, he is suddenly confronted by a mysterious figure, a divine messenger. The two engage in an intense, physical struggle that lasts until dawn. Jacob, though exhausted, refuses to let go, crying out, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The angel, seeing Jacob's determination, touches his hip, dislocating it, yet Jacob continues to hold on. At last, the angel blesses him, declaring, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have wrestled with God and with men, and have prevailed." As the sun rises, Jacob limps back to his camp, his body marked by the encounter, but his spirit transformed. He is now Israel, a man who has faced both God and his fears and emerged blessed. As the sun rises, Jacob sees Esau and his men approaching. He arranges his family behind him and steps forward, bowing low to the ground 7 times in a gesture of submission and respect. To Jacob's astonishment, Esau runs to meet him not with anger, but with tears of joy. The brothers embrace, their years of estrangement melting away in that moment of reconciliation. Esau accepts Jacob's gifts, but insists he is content with his own wealth. The reunion is a profound testament to the power of forgiveness and God's ability to heal broken relationships. Though their paths diverge once again, Jacob continues his journey with a renewed sense of hope and gratitude. Jacob leads his caravan back to Bethel, the place where he first encountered God. As he nears the sacred site, he feels the weight of God's promises fulfilled, protection during his journey, reconciliation with Esau, and blessings of family and prosperity. At Bethel, Jacob builds an altar, dedicating it to the God who appeared to him in his vision. The pillar he once set up as a memorial now stands as a testament to God's faithfulness. Jacob kneels, offering prayers of thanksgiving and pledging his continued devotion. The journey of Jacob's transformation is complete, and he now fully embraces his identity as Israel, a man chosen by God to carry forward his covenant. As Jacob gathers his family around the altar at Bethel, he recounts the vision of the ladder and the promises God made to him. He reminds them of the journey that brought them to this place, marked by struggles, deceit, and reconciliation. "The God of my fathers has been with me every step," he proclaims. Jacob leads his household in prayer, urging them to put away foreign gods and purify themselves as an act of renewed dedication to the Lord. The altar becomes a site of sacrifice and worship, filled with the fragrance of offerings and the sound of psalms. Jacob feels the weight of his role as the inheritor of God's covenant and the responsibility of leading his family in righteousness. This moment solidifies his identity as Israel, a man transformed by divine encounters and committed to living out God's promises. As the sun sets over Bethel, Jacob looks out over his family and the land promised to him, his heart filled with awe and gratitude. Jacob's journey from Bethel continues with his growing family, but tragedy strikes as they near Bethlehem. Rachel, heavily pregnant, goes into labor. The birth is difficult, and despite the midwife's best efforts, Rachel's life begins to fade. She names her newborn son Ben-Oni, son of my sorrow, before passing away. Jacob, devastated, renames the child Benjamin, son of my right hand, as a way to honor Rachel while embracing the child's future significance. The caravan halts as Jacob buries Rachel by the roadside, marking her grave with a pillar. This moment of profound grief reminds Jacob of life's fragility, even as God's promises continue to unfold. Rachel's loss leaves a void in Jacob's heart, but he resolves to carry on, trusting that God's plan will prevail even in sorrow. With Rachel gone, tensions resurface among Jacob's wives and children. Leah and her sons assert greater dominance, while Joseph, Rachel's firstborn, becomes the favored child. Jacob's preference for Joseph is evident, fueling resentment among his older sons. Meanwhile, Benjamin grows under Jacob's watchful eye, reminding him of Rachel's legacy. The complex family dynamics create a simmering undercurrent of jealousy and division. Jacob's heart is torn between his desire to maintain peace and his inclination to protect Joseph and Benjamin. Amid these challenges, Jacob prays for wisdom, seeking guidance to navigate the growing conflicts within his household. Joseph begins to share dreams that further alienate him from his brothers. He recounts a vision of sheaves of grain bowing to his sheaf and another of the sun, moon, and stars bowing to him. Though Jacob chastises Joseph for his apparent arrogance, he secretly ponders the dreams, recalling his own divine encounters. Jacob wonders if Joseph is destined for greatness and feels both hope and trepidation for his son's future. The brothers, however, grow increasingly resentful, plotting against Joseph as jealousy consumes them. Jacob's worst fears come true when Joseph, sent to check on his brothers in the fields, does not return. The brothers, driven by jealousy, sell Joseph into slavery and bring back his torn and bloodied tunic as evidence of his supposed death. Jacob is inconsolable, tearing his garments and mourning deeply. He clutches Joseph's tunic, refusing comfort, and declares he will mourn until he joins his son in death. This event plunges Jacob into a period of deep sorrow, testing his faith and resolve. Time passes, but Jacob's sorrow over Joseph's loss lingers like a shadow over the family. Despite the growth of his household and his increasing wealth, Jacob feels an emptiness that no earthly possession can fill. He turns more fervently to God, seeking comfort in the promises made at Bethel. As famine spreads through the region, Jacob's leadership is tested. He instructs his sons to seek provisions in Egypt, unaware that Joseph, his lost son, has risen to power in Pharaoh's court. Jacob, though aged and weary, remains steadfast in his faith, clinging to the hope that God's plans, though inscrutable, are good. His son's departure for Egypt stirs both anxiety and faint hope, as if the unseen hand of God is at work once again. Jacob gathers his family to pray for their safe journey, asking God for protection and provision in a time of desperate need. In Egypt, The dramatic revelation unfolds as Joseph reveals his identity to his brothers. Overcome with emotion, he weeps loudly, and the brothers are struck with both joy and fear. Joseph assures them of forgiveness, emphasizing God's providence. What you meant for evil, God meant for good, to preserve life. He instructs them to return to Canaan and bring their father to Egypt, where he promises to provide for them during the famine. The brothers, still reeling from the revelation, make haste to share the incredible news with Jacob. Joseph's words echo in their hearts, a story of redemption woven through pain and separation. When the brothers return to Canaan with the news, Jacob is initially incredulous. "Joseph is alive?" he asks, trembling with a mixture of disbelief and longing. As they recount the story of Joseph's rise to power and his invitation to Egypt, Jacob's heart begins to stir. For the first time in years, hope blossoms within him. He gathers his family and all their possessions, setting out for Egypt with a caravan that reflects the fulfillment of God's promise to make him a great nation. The journey is long and arduous, but Jacob's spirit is renewed as he anticipates reuniting with Joseph. Along the way, Jacob pauses to worship at Beersheba, offering sacrifices to God and seeking his blessing. That night, God appears to Jacob in a vision, reassuring him, "Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you a great nation there. I will go with you and bring you back again." As the caravan nears Egypt, Jacob's heart pounds with anticipation. When he finally sees Joseph riding in a royal chariot to meet him, tears flow freely. Jacob descends from his cart, and Joseph runs to embrace him. Father and son weep together, their reunion a poignant culmination of years of separation and sorrow. "Now I can die in peace," Jacob says, "for I have seen that you are alive." Joseph introduces his father to Pharaoh, who graciously offers Jacob and his family the fertile land of Goshen as their dwelling place. Jacob blesses Pharaoh, acknowledging God's providence in bringing them to safety. The family settles in Goshen, finding refuge in the midst of famine and flourishing under Joseph's care. As Jacob's life nears its end, he calls his sons together to bless them. Leaning on his staff, Jacob delivers prophetic words over each son, speaking of their destinies and their roles in the future tribes of Israel. To Joseph, he gives a special blessing, recognizing him as a fruitful vine whose branches run over the wall. Jacob speaks with clarity and authority, his words echoing the promises God made to him. He charges his sons to bury him in the cave of Machpelah, alongside Abraham and Isaac, as a testament to the covenant. Jacob's final words are a mixture of wisdom, hope, and gratitude for the God who has guided him through every trial. When he breathes his last, surrounded by his family, Jacob's journey comes full circle, a life marked by transformation, faith, and the fulfillment of divine promises. As Jacob's story shows, transformation comes not from where you start, but the steps you take forward. If this journey resonated with you, give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone who might need a little hope, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that inspire change. What part of Jacob's journey spoke to you the most? Let's discuss in the comments.